So in Oxfam's view, there were four main causes for the global food price crisis that we saw in 2007-2008. There were very poor harvests in some of the major grain producing countries in the world, Australia for example. Fuel prices, oil prices were very high, which impacted upon the cost of the production of food due to high fertilizer prices, and also the cost of transporting food to markets. Also, the increase in the production of biofuels in the last few years has taken land away from food production and helped to reduce the global supply of food. And also the increase in demand from emerging economies such as China and India has resulted in inflation in the cost of food. So altogether, these factors resulted in an increase in the number of hungry people in the world, an increase of about 150 million people that has taken the total number of hungry people to over 1 billion. But even before the increase in food prices, there was already a world food crisis. 850 million people were already going hungry. So hunger is nothing new, and a lot needs to be done to address the underlying causes of the problem. So there's a need for a comprehensive approach to resolve the global crisis, the food crisis. World leaders at the Summit for World Food Security, which was held in Rome in November 2009, agreed that such a comprehensive approach was needed that both addresses people's immediate food needs by ensuring the provision of social protection and also emergency relief to help people meet their immediate food needs, but also the need to increase investment in agricultural production, particularly for small-scale farmers in developing countries, that help them to promote sustainable livelihoods, but also measures that address unfair trade rules that reduce access for developing countries and poor farmers to markets. So there's a need to address all of these issues. And the primary responsibility rests with national governments for promoting those kinds of solutions. But it's definitely true that many poor countries need financial support from donor countries if they're going to be able to afford the types of programs that are needed to sustainably address hunger and food insecurity. In April 2008, the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon created the high-level task force on the global food security crisis. The idea was to try and promote a better unified and coordinated response between the global organisations that have a role to play in promoting food security, including the Food and Agriculture Organization, the World Food Programme, the International Fund on Agricultural Development, the World Bank, and about 20 other major global organizations. One of the first things that the high-level task force did was produce a policy document called the Comprehensive Framework for Action that provides a common policy framework for those organizations, so they can ensure more consistent policy advice and support to developing countries. The creation of the task force and the development of that policy framework is very valuable and useful, but there's still a long way to go in trying to ensure that all of these global organisations work together in a coordinated and coherent way to support national governments to address the problems of hunger and food security. There's been a lot of talk in the last year or so about the need for a global partnership for agriculture and food security and nutrition. Different people have different ideas as to what a global partnership should look like. In Oxfam's opinion, really it consists of a number of different elements. Firstly, the Committee on World Food Security, which is the major international intergovernmental platform for food security that should be responsible for promoting policy coherence between governments in order that they're working together to address the global causes of hunger. So that's a very important element of the global partnership. But also the high-level task force consisting of the major global organisations working together in a coordinated kind of way. A high-level panel of experts is being established by the Committee on World Food Security as a way of providing scientific and technical advice to try and find the best policy solutions. But also civil society organisations have a critical role to play in mobilising public pressure on governments to take increased action and to monitor the progress that is being made by governments in addressing problems of hunger and food insecurity. So really the combination of those different elements is what Oxfam thinks is the basis for a global partnership. The World Food Summit was held in November in Rome last year, and for Oxfam it was a very disappointing meeting of world leaders and really a wasted opportunity and wasted resources. In our evaluation we gave the summit a score of 2 out of 10, really reflecting the miserable outcome in comparison to the level of suffering that the summit was intended to address. Governments really failed to come up with and agree to develop national plans of action that would describe how they would achieve the goal that they've set themselves, which is to reduce by half the proportion of hungry people in the world by 2015. There are no clear plans at a national or global level by which that goal will be achieved. There was also a failure to commit to increase further the amount of overseas development assistance that would be provided by donor countries to support developing countries to achieve that goal. There was also the opportunity to discuss mechanisms by which governments would hold each other to account for the commitments they had made, but there was very little discussion practically about what such a mechanism should look like. There were 1 or 2 positives, including the agreement by governments to work together in the Committee on World Food Security to try and find common solutions and strategies. And also a recognition of the legal obligation of governments to ensure that everybody is able to acquire sufficient food to eat.